We have begun the recording. Welcome and thank you for joining us. This webinar is entitled Write the Winning Nonfiction Book Proposal. I am Sarah, your host for this event. Today we have two presenters. Erin Flynn Jay is president of Flynn Media in Philadelphia. She started this company in 2001 as a communications firm. It offers public relations and copywriting services for small businesses, including authors and their book launches. Her focus has been on traditional media outreach. In 2010, Erin wrote extensively about family professional coaching topics. Her articles have also appeared in diverse publications, including Brandweek, CareerBuilder.com, CoachingCommons.org, MSN Careers, and Wealth Manager. This year, Erin wrote a book proposal, Mastering the Mommy Track, Juggling Career and Kids in Uncertain Times. Her book is under contract with O Books. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you. It's good to be with you all. The book query process seems to be mostly editorial, yet it really is a sales document. The proposal needs to sell as well as inform. I will add marketing and publicity details and hints.
Also, our second presenter this evening is Timothy Savatage, Executive Director of My Literary Coach. His company helps authors get published well. He started this company just 1.5 years ago. For over 25 years, Tim served as a publisher's book editor, senior editor, and imprint publisher, reviewing and acquiring books based on their proposals. An early surprise, he tells me, is how many book proposals are poorly written. Yet proposals, and not manuscripts, are how authors get book contracts. During his career, he has read over 20,000 proposals. In just 18 months, he has helped over 55 authors develop and place their proposals with publishers. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Sarah. I look forward to questions and comments from attendees.
Yes, everyone on this webinar has an on-screen control box. At the bottom is a place for typing and submitting your questions or comments. So, Tim, why don't you begin?
With an idea, a literature review, and an outline, you as a nonfiction author have the ingredients for a proposal package. With this package, you can approach many publishers directly. Even when you seek a literary agent, you can still need this same proposal package. Note, whether your subject is academic or general, true crime or how-to, the same basic elements need to go into the envelope or email attachments. Let me underscore it's all about the proposal. Don't write your manuscript unless you're open to rewriting it. If you have a manuscript, don't say in your query letter that I have just finished writing. Editors and agents want to see something you've written and rewritten. And never mail your manuscript as a printout or email attachment until it is requested. Editors and agents only read proposals, and they want to help you shape the final product. What you should see on the screen is a typical proposal layout. Your proposal answers 12 basic questions to the degree needed. Right away, you as the author are called upon to make huge editorial decisions.
When doing my early research on proposals, I found several different lists, orderings, and numbers of questions. Nathan Bradford offered a helpful image. The art of writing a nonfiction book proposal is sort of like cooking lasagna. There are maybe 1,000 ways of making it. Everyone has their own recipe, but most every lasagna will have a few basic ingredients, and chances are it's going to taste good in the end.
A good metaphor. The outline we provide applies to just about every kind of nonfiction, from history to memoir, or from self-help to humor. So let's get started. The first question is this: what do you propose to write? In order of presentation, you will begin by sending out a query, a one-page appeal for the reader. A one-page appeal for the reader, a literary agent or publisher's editor, to request a copy of your proposal. Notice that the readers are gatekeepers. They are not your final audience. The query is the most important piece to produce. No wonder that many authors find the query the hardest thing to write. You need to boil down all the parts into a few sentences. Here's a shrunk-down copy of Erin's query email. The body of the email is only 300 words. Notice she has 2 paragraphs each on the hook, the book, and the cook.
Michael Larson's How to Write a Book proposal made a lot of sense to me. He calls it the hook, the book, and the cook. The hook is whatever best justifies publishing your book. I used research into working women with children. The book section describes your work as a product. How many words long will it be? Why in 15 words or less should a bookstore stock your book? And who will buy it? The cook is the reason you are the right person to write the book, your background, followers, and promotion plan.
And perhaps the hardest part is choosing a title. You need to tell what the book is about and also sell it.
I like the story that Guy Kawasaki tells in his book, How to Drive Your Competition Crazy. A private boys' school offered a course titled Home Economics for Boys, and guess what? No one signed up for the course. The next semester, the school changed the name and the class filled up immediately. The new title? Bachelor Living.
So the same content, but a different title or way to frame the content. Probably every author's title and hook gets read by agents and editors. The task is to keep them reading past the early materials. So Erin, how did you come to title your book?
My first title was pulled between Kids and Career, Mastering the Mommy Track. Then I liked the subtitle, so I developed Mastering the Mommy Track, Fearlessly Balancing Career and Kids. Finally, I thought the Fearlessly Balancing was too glib, so I landed on Mastering the Mommy Track, Juggling Career and Kids in Uncertain Times.
Did you test any of your ideas?
Yes, I did. I have a network of kid career mothers with whom I relate on a monthly or more frequent basis. I sent out my ideas and got back great advice as well as support. Then I posted my revised titles on a women's message board and got back still more advice.
Many nonfiction books need a high tell-sell factor. Your current title and subtitle name the situation and promise help for mothers and their families. Most authors write the one-page query letter after writing the proposal. The query letter is really that summary in 250 or 350 words. In this webinar, our focus is on the longer proposal from which you derive your query. Here's Erin's title page, her proposal with the title and contact information. The second question is, what is this book about? Sometimes this is called the book's premise, other times the overview. This is unlike anything you will ever write. It is not quite a synopsis. It's surely not a sample chapter, not even your introduction. Occasionally it sounds like catalog copy or something from a book's back cover. It's the content of your book. Sometimes the subject merely needs to be mentioned. Suppose you're writing a new biography on JFK or Ronald Reagan. The subject is clear enough, and you probably will want to spend time on the other questions. But what if your subject is, say, Stephen Grover Cleveland, the only U.S. president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms? Well, you would likely need to spend some time identifying the man and his times.
Remember, you are writing for only a few readers here. Even if your book is aimed at a general readership, the editors or agents to whom you send it may have published on your subject several times.
Yes, other times you may need 2 or even 10 pages to describe the subject. What if the subject were cosmic ripples in the universe? There's no entry in Wikipedia, so you may need to say something about the subject before you discuss your approach. Who discovered it and when? Is this part of science training? Is it a theory to explain gaps in science?
I found this question hard to answer as I started to envision my book. I think every mother with a career understands the tension between raising children in a positive environment and putting in the time on a career. What moved me to start this book was a story in the Philadelphia Inquirer last January. Donna Oxford, a 53-year-old grandmother, was laid off in December 2007. She had worked for an e-commerce company. In 2008, she adopted her grandson to keep him out of the foster care system. In January 2011, she was still unemployed, 36 months and counting. She wrote a moving poem titled, "Today I Lost a Tooth." It recalls her state of poverty, lack of medical and dental insurance, and so forth. I read this in a local Starbucks with my two daughters, and I was moved to tears by her story. Millions of mothers, single and married, have found themselves in unfortunate situations today, concerned about how they will support their children. I knew on that cold day last January I had to write this book to address these unprecedented obstacles women were facing. This was something different than what we had all expected. We were used to industries shedding workers, and within 6 months they would find another job.
Erin, your story about Donna is really powerful and moving. An author with such a story should draw upon it. Get it into your proposal. I picture the mommy track as a teeter-totter balance between family and career. Yet you are pointing out that the economic fulcrum holding up the teeter-totter is itself shifting or crumbling, at least for some working mothers. Or another image, a woman is walking a tightrope stretched between these two goods of children and career. Only the economy is shaking the rope. Is that correct?
Yes, a key part of my subject is what I have called uncertain times. Donna surely expected to be back to work before 3 years had passed.
There. The subject is clear as well as the target reader. Erin's complete overview ran about 300 words and cited 2 studies. I think this takes us right to the next question. What's the book's thesis or argument, and what's new about it? The answers here are generally the most important. Some call this the core insight or the 15-word summary. The author needs to take a position on the subject and show how this position is different from other positions currently available. So tell us, Erin, just how you move from your subject to your thesis.
My argument is that traditional self-help books for working moms will not capture the fundamental shift, the crumbling fulcrum on the teeter-totter or the shaking high-wire rope, as you put it. Women on the mommy track are cooking up fundamentally different strategies for these new economic times. My writing coach called this a news thesis, meaning, I guess, that everything hung on whether I could unearth this new wisdom in the face of a new economic order.
So what have you found? What was the research that supported your thesis?
I found 2 helpful pieces. First, the number of women involved was tremendous. Currently, over 70% of women with children ages 6 or younger are in the labor force. This is double the 1975 rate. As of 2007, 60% of mothers with children under age 3 were in the labor force. This showed that lots of women and families are involved with work and home issues. Second, a 2010 Pew Research survey found that 30 months after it began, the Great Recession has led to a downsizing of Americans' expectations about their retirements and their children's future, a new frugality in their spending and borrowing habits, and a concern that it could take several years at a minimum for their house values and family finances to recover. This showed that a fundamental change was happening in these affected homes.
Perfect research. This third question asks for a thesis, a position on a subject as well as implication. It's a thesis with the added question, and so. And so for you, Erin, your thesis is that a large pool of mothers in the workforce are facing the disruption of their family goals, and they are doing new things as a result, including the recasting of those goals.
Yes, so far I have written 4 chapters. Not all of the stories are as riveting as Donna Oxford's. Not all of the strategies are new, yet clearly something new is emerging.
Well, that leads nicely into the 4th question. Why is now the time to publish this book? Many times this question is put in the book section, so we will visit it there also. An author once approached me by saying that in 3 years, the Catholic Church would celebrate a year of Jubilee, and that 1.5 million people would travel from the U.S. to Rome. The book was a travel guide for this trip, what Americans should see while in Rome. Another author documented that 5 million women would be entering menopause each year for the next 15 years. The book helped women through this transition.
Well, the clock is ticking on my book. I surely hope our economic fortunes increase. My book has its greatest value, however, only if it is published before that happens. This question didn't seem too noticeable in the submission process.
I think that's often the case. Most of the time this question goes unmentioned. So mention it with a source and make the resulting pool of readers the target of your book.
Tim, I think we should pause a minute to show ways to take this material and put it into the proposal. I started by answering each question. Then I rewrote it in a free-form style.
Yes, and you'll see on the screen this kind of structured approach which many authors use, kind of the Roman outline, as well as moving into a free form or narrative form of paragraphs that tell a coherent story, a well-connected story. So begin by answering the questions and then rewrite as you see the opportunity. Let's move to the next section of the book. And that is the readership, or the book itself. Who makes up the core audience for the proposed book, and why will they find it appealing? Don't try to spread too much butter when answering this question. First-time authors often fall into the trap of saying that every person, or every thinking person, needs this book.
Right, Tim. Your book will not appeal to everyone, not even to every thinking person.
Set forth who exactly would be interested in your thesis and what possible resources that group might lend to the promotion and sale of your book.
I like the example from the previous question, why publish now? The Jubilee of the Catholic Church is the why. It's also the who. These 1.5 million people are Catholic and will pass through specific airports, even terminals, when making their pilgrimage to Rome. They suddenly have a long flight ahead of them. Some will have carefully planned their itinerary. Others will be thankful simply to have packed their bags and made the flight. Or perhaps congregations will have persons flying together as a group. Then travel companies may put together travel packages. This book could not only inform the sightseeing choices, but also become a premium tour remembrance for the trip. I can see lots of possible ways to promote this title.
All great ideas, Aaron. The second half of the question is a bit tricky. Why will they find it appealing?
And it seems like some of the questions flow into one another. For example, the question, why now, gets a similar answer to this question, why will book buyers find it appealing?
I think that is correct. Authors should put the question and answer wherever it fits best. I noticed in my research that Michael Hyatt has a formula for this. If consumers in the target market purchase and read your book, then they will list the book's benefits, because the book will list the book's features. For my book, one example would go this way. If book buyers in the target market purchase and read Mastering the Mommy track, then they will be able to pass along confidence to their children, because the book will provide specific examples of mothers who have succeeded.
Michael encourages authors to break this sentence up, bullet point several benefits, and then list corresponding features in a separate bulleted list as you see here.
That provides lots of visual impact as well.
It also requires that you coordinate these so that each benefit has a feature and vice versa. So Aaron, how did you find these?
Some of my benefits and features came from my own experience and what I sought. To answer this question convincingly, I also examined other titles on the same subject and jotted specific ways that my book would differ from what already was available.
And here is a related question. What if you find many titles?
The trick is to group or bunch like-type titles. In the pilgrimage example, you might find several travel guides to Italy. Now put them into piles of like types with the best-selling or best-known on top. Make some guesses. One pile could be personal guides, Rick Steves, Eyewitness Travel, and Lonely Planet. They are all quirky. I would put Lonely Planet on the top of that stack. Maybe another pile as top 10 travel Italy titles and a bunch of others. This stack is about not missing the major attractions. Your Italian guide might steer between those piles. It could be an official or endorsed guide that shows the major sites connected to the pilgrimage, as well as off-the-path places in Rome.
If you're afraid of too many competitors, then be reassured that editors think in different ways. Often a shelf full of books signals to editors that the subject is important or capable of having more than one title about it. To claim a subject with no books on the shelf can actually scare editors. Think about ripples in the universe. There's no book on the subject. Well, editors think, how do we know this is a real subject? Nobody's published on it.
I see a similar thing not only in publicity but also in shopping. A store with action in one area often attracts others who want to see what is going on. Shoppers don't want to miss out. A similar thing happens with news cycles. A story attracts attention, and then newscasters and experts raise new questions and search for new information.
And that is what this question is poking around for. Who is the readership, and do they talk to one another or relate to one another in some way? Could we get some buzz or something viral going? Okay, question 6 focuses on the package or the product you have in mind. What are the contents or argument being offered? What you need to produce here is a brief narrative outline, perhaps 2 or 3 pages long. Start by listing each chapter title, and then write a paragraph or possibly 2 describing how the argument is being advanced or what biographical period this chapter focuses on, or the like. This should read like a good summary report. Here's an example of a chapter summary from Michael Larson's How to Write a Book Proposal. I didn't get it all on, but it's only 55 words long to describe this chapter. You'll want to pay attention to the framework that you're using to create your outline. Here are some examples. Problem solution. Numerical, like 7 habits of highly effective people. We expect 7 chapters. Chronological books, for example, books on pregnancy. Compare and contrast outlines. A good example of that is Jim Collins' Good to Great. Or the modular framework, where you read chapters only as you need to. Each chapter stands on its own. And there are many other frameworks.
I think that the Mommy Track is a modular framework. By locating my key peer titles and examining them carefully, I saw immediately that I needed to set up 4 core sections. 1, home issues, 2, health issues, 3, parenting issues, and finally 4, work-life stress. Then I arranged them so that the most fundamental issues came first: mental health, communication, finances, and romance. These apply both to women in committed relationships and those who are single.
Aaron, that was a smart move. Locating your key peer titles is most important. And some call these competing titles. You want to look at them and see how each is structured. Do they leave some holes? If you could pick only one title, which one would you select and why? What will you do differently to be most helpful for other users? For example, could your book be the biggest on the subject or the smallest? Then I'm curious, did you have the chapters pretty much in mind and need to group them, or did you work from your 4 core sections out into the chapters?
Well, Tim, I had the chapters in mind and slotted them into the core sections. I asked myself, what are the 12 trigger areas that cause working mothers anxiety today? This was based on my personal experience research, and feedback from my mom friends in Philadelphia and acquaintances.
And Erin, was writing this part of the proposal difficult?
Well, Sarah, if you are passionate about a topic, then it should not be difficult for you to determine your own book chapters and the unique hook. After all, you should be writing about what you know, what you are involved with on a daily basis, what you don't mind burning the midnight oil writing about. After all, you will be immersed in your book for a long time, so make sure it's the right topic for you and at the right time. 10 years ago, I envisioned my first book being about heart transplantation. My father received a heart transplant back in 1992, almost 20 years ago, so it's a personal topic I'd like to see out in the mainstream. I did some research at the time, and I didn't uncover a lot of titles on the topic, but I never pursued a proposal. Perhaps that will be the topic for my second book.
Passion is a good word, because your passion needs to come through your written proposal, as well as, you note, Erin, fuel your work on the project. So to sum up your proposal's second section, you want to discuss your book in as much detail as possible. This section asks some big questions to which you want to write responses. These questions include, who is the core readership for your book? Where can these readers be found? How does your book compare with others already for sale? Why will readers find yours attractive? How is your book structured? What is the story told or the argument being made? The reader section can use questions, bullet points, or an outline to structure your presentation, or you can write narrative paragraphs to best tell your book's story. But be sure in this section to close by stating your manuscript status. For example, you have an outline and 2 chapters done. What's the length of the book? How many chapters do you want to complete? When will your first draft be completed? Will it include illustrations or other things? Now we move to question 7. In Michael Larson's language, we are now turning to focus on you as the cook. And here's again the reader section using the possible option of the narrative paragraphs. Why are you the person to write this book?
Tim, I guess being the world's expert on your subject or a pop icon will be a quick answer to this question. Yet I was surely not that. I had done lots of research and copywriting. I have a network of mothers with whom I talk on a regular basis. And I posted some queries on message boards for mothers, so I knew that I could find women who wanted to tell their stories. But
you don't need to be the world's expert on a topic or be a current pop icon, but you do need to find some credential.
Such as time spent in archives, or in my case on social media and the phone.
Or be a member of a group focused on a subject.
Such as a breast cancer survivor speaking to other survivors.
Or operate a website on the subject.
Perhaps one that attracts 1,000 new visitors each month.
Right. I'm sure your prior experience in writing copy, Erin, was helpful in your getting your offer. I also suspect that your media connections and publicity work were part of your credentials as an author.
So, Tim and Erin, here's a question. What if I have negatives, such as a previous book that didn't do very well? Should I mention it?
From a public relations perspective, and I suspect a legal one, you should never lie on your applications or deliberately deceive.
I agree. The purpose of the proposal is to start a relationship. Think of it as making arrangements for a possible first date. There will be a time to discuss all that's happened to you in life, but now is not that time. You'll simply want to mention the situation in your resume.
So how about, what if I am currently weak in this area? Do I have any chance of getting published?
Tim is correct that I played up my publicity work and media connections because I have them and plan to use them when my book launches. It seems like quite an advantage.
But I would ask the questioner to think about it for a minute. Before Erin had all of those connections, she had only a few connections, meaning that she spent time building a network. When you see a deficiency, you'll need to draw up a plan to address it with either time or funds or both. For example, if you do not have subject expertise, can you find someone in the subject area to review your work and give you a reader's report? And reader's reports are usually private but can be shared, or an endorsement, which is usually public. Again, we will come back to this issue with a later question on author platforms.
You could also shift your angle. Suppose you wanted to write a book on the latest breast cancer treatment options, but you are not a medical expert. Could you shift your angle to support systems for undergoing treatment, or chronicle women's experiences at each stage? That's a good way.
It is a good way to make you the perfect author for your book. The 8th question probes more about your background. What education, experiences, and skills qualify you to write this book? Academics, if you have a CV, then whittle it down to be more resume-like. Keep only the relevant materials that highlight what makes you the most qualified to write this book.
Well, Tim, once I wrote my resume, I realized some information was missing, while other items could be downplayed. For example, I found that my recent writing online for a number of different recognized companies was far more important than my university degree from a dozen years ago.
A resume can also be a place where you quietly address any potential negative information. Here is where you would want to list a poor-selling title. If you have a self-published book, then you'll want to give the publisher or printer's name as part of your notification in the resume. If the sales of your self-published book were meager, then you might consider not mentioning an actual sales number. Don't make up a number, just don't mention one. Poor sales are actually worse than no prior book or sales experience.
So the next question is, what publicity about you is relevant to your proposal? I tell my clients, enter variations of your name on a search engine such as Google and see what pops up. You can be assured that an editor seriously considering your proposal will be doing this. Now, if you find something negative, then work to mute it. Can you challenge the factuality? Can you write a comment in your book proposal, give context to any negative publicity? Also focus on the positive pieces. You may find that you wrote an article on someone where someone wrote something positive about you. Maybe you are connected with a civic organization and this pops up on your search. Again, all information should be pared down to whatever is relevant for getting this publication.
Excellent points. And if you uncover any unflattering material, you should address it in your resume. Question 10 focuses specifically on books. Do you have any reviews of previous books? The temptation here is to cherry pick the one good review written by a former colleague in graduate school. Include them all. Readers' comments on Amazon.com should be included as well. Again, any negative review should be given context.
I would emphasize that issues should be identified, addressed, and then dropped. Don't go on and on. List the titles, include the reviews, and mention how much you work to get your book into review outlets.
That last part is really important to emphasize how hard you've worked on previous titles. For many first-time authors, discussing resume, publicity, reviews, or even the next item, platforms, really induces anxiety. The resume feels thin. Google offers incorrect versions of your name because it can't find anything about you. And this is your first book. There are no reviews of prior works. If this is your situation, then produce your resume and begin working on the next item.
So what is the extent of your platform? If you do not know what this is, then consider focusing here first. Your literary agent or editor should be able to find your robust presence online. Then they also know that you are continually visible to the markets for your book. I define a platform as a list in descending order of importance of what you are doing to make potential book buyers aware of you and your book. You may set up a blog that offers weekly tips or insights. It's maintaining a continuing presence. That's the reason that social media is so important today, because it is about the ever-presence. And the point is that you are continually building the relationship for this book and your next one. Building the readership for this book, rather. If you are a professional, a doctor, lawyer, historian, psychologist, or other professional, then your website, blogging, or other presence may be about reaching your peers. This can include writing articles based on your book, perhaps for journals in your area, being a member of your professional society, giving speeches or participating in panels during regional or national meetings. Most authors who are touring today for talks and book signings are doing this at their own expense. Maybe that doesn't fit your budget. Then how about a blog tour in which you write guest blogs or get live interviews?
So here's a question. Should you list platform items from most important to least?
Yes. Michael Larson, How to Write a Book Proposal in the 4th edition, has a great list on pages 82 to 83. Let me pick some items in descending order. Books you have written with reviews and sales. Number of talks you have done on subject and plan for future talks. The names of major corporations or nonprofits where you have spoken. If you are selling anything, then where do you sell it? And if connected with speaking, how many you sell at an event or per year. The name of newspaper or magazine in which you have a column, and links to samples, national radio or television shows on which you have appeared and frequency, online social networks in which you are active, number of articles you have published on subjects with links to strongest samples, how long you have been blogging and the number of people who are registered, number of people who visit your website each month, size of your email list, and anything else that could impress editors.
That's quite a list, Erin. I noticed that Michael also follows up with 18 ways you can build your online platform. Most of these ways require time and commitment more than money. These last 5 questions form the third part of your proposal, namely you as the author, as the cook. Like the other 2 sections, we can show you there the structured list of questions and the option for a more free form. The final section contains the sample chapters. So what would a typical chapter look like? And you'll want to actually introduce probably 2 chapters. Make these chapters representative of your content and absolutely perfect in spelling, grammar, sentence structure, and formatting.
Tim, some things I learned in this process are, do pick a core chapter and don't send the introduction. Do pick out a chapter that you love. I chose to write chapter 2, Communication, How Can I Stop Fighting with My Spouse? Meanwhile, I avoided chapter 3 on finances because I thought it might be dry or dull. But this chapter really took off when I told Donna Oxford's story. This chapter has a lot more heart and passion. Do rewrite your chapter once or twice. Since doing research on other chapters, I have discovered things I want to add to my communication chapter. I also rewrote it to make it a bit more upbeat than the first draft. Do have your proposal and sample chapter copy edited by a book editor. They will be your best foot forward. I write copy for a living and think that my editing skills are excellent, yet I missed a few items. Everyone does on their own writing.
So here's a question. How long should the sample chapter be?
In terms of words, most chapters are around 5,000 words in length, but many books range from 3,500 to 7,500 words. Make each chapter the same size or close to the same size.
Also, make every word count and ask your trusted readers or a writing coach about this. Critique partners in writing groups, these unpaid resources can be valuable. I ask authors to remember that these readers point out problems. This is their important contribution.
Great. So we have about 18 minutes remaining in the hour, just enough time for some questions. Please use the console to type in and send questions. And if there are too many, I'll help moderate. Otherwise, perhaps Tim and Aaron will address them directly. Here's one to start us off. How many agents or publishers would you send a proposal to at once?
Well, from a sales perspective, you will want to focus on your best choices first. Perhaps you have a list of a dozen with 3 to 4 at the top. Send to those top ones first.
That's exactly our philosophy as well. Develop a short list of best choices and pursue them. What happens if you do a kind of shotgun blast or carpet bomb the world with your proposal is that small publishers will be able to react much quicker than large publishers. So you might receive an offer in a month from a company you've never heard of. There are about 70,000 publishers in the United States that publish in English. So do you take the offer? Well, it's only going to be good for 2 weeks. It's going to take 2 more months for other publishers to possibly make an offer to you. So there's a real strategy in focusing on your first choices first.
Great. So attendees should please feel free to type in questions on the chat box. And in the meantime, let me ask another question. What would you say is about the minimum amount of time someone should expect to put together a proposal? Are we talking a few months?
I think that if this is the person's subject area where they've been doing reading and so on, they spot a need or a trend, it would, I would think, take a couple of weeks or maybe even less to put a good proposal together. And I think proposals that are put together in a fairly rapid first draft actually have a lot more passion, as we talked about earlier.
And
it didn't, from my recollection, it didn't take me that long. Because this was a topic I was so passionate about, so I worked with a coach and was able to turn around a proposal pretty rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Great. I don't see any questions from attendees. Maybe you could each just take a turn to tell us again what type of services you offer through your company.
Go ahead,
Go
Aaron.
ahead, Tim. You want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay. As Sarah mentioned earlier, I've been in business since 2001, and I've developed a niche of working with authors. I worked for some New York agencies in the past. I also work with small businesses, any types of industries, and copywriting has been a focus. I write press material, articles for other companies. Writing has been my first love and my passion, so I'm very excited to be working on my first book.
Mm-hmm. And thank you. We focus on the proposal writing here, working with authors in developing manuscripts, and also assisting them in developing lists for where to send their proposals. I noticed there's a question that has come in, and it's in this same area. With so many publishers and agents, how do you know which ones might pay attention to me? Well, the key is which companies are publishing in the subject area that you're focusing on. And I do research in the deals that have gone down in the last 12 months in particular subjects. And those are your most likely candidates if you've got a different contribution than what they've published in the past. There are companies that kind of want to own subject areas or be key players in subject areas. So that, for me, is a real key, is looking for people who've done these kinds of books. One of the examples earlier on that Aaron and I discussed was I've done some work with the law of attraction and quantum physics, books in that area. Well, for the general reader, you've got to say a lot about what that book is about, but not for the editor or the agent who's searching for those titles. They routinely publish in that area, and they know how this argument fits with other things that are in the marketplace. And then I would like to
Great.
Invite people to a nonfiction authors roundtable that we're setting up in 2 weeks, either at 2 p.m. in the afternoon Eastern Time or 9 p.m. again at this hour on Tuesday. And that'll have a slightly different format. It's limited to 15 attendees, and it's an open mic. All the attendees can speak, raise their hand, speak, as well, contribute as well as ask questions, have a conversation, much more than this one-sided kind of presentation.
Oh, that sounds fabulous, Tim.
Well, great. I have one more question. Would you say it's more important to, charge ahead and write the manuscript before you write the proposal, or is it better to kind of write parts of the manuscript and then write the proposal?
That may be a matter of personal style. Some people may want to test whether they can put together an introduction that they like, or that there's a chapter they want to work on first and then build the proposal back around. I would recommend starting with the proposal and working with it as much as possible. Even if you as an author are thinking, I'm going to self-publish this, the proposal becomes your non-financial business plan for your book. It'll help you focus what you're doing. Aaron?
I agree that it's probably beneficial just to start with a proposal and a first chapter and see where that goes. That was certainly my situation. I didn't want to write an entire book first. I wanted to get some reaction and response, a reader's report. So I just concentrated on the proposal and then finishing the first chapter.
Mm-hmm. And so nonfiction authors really have a buy at this point. Namely, you can test the market with a small sample. Fiction authors have to finish the book. But fiction authors are judged by the quality of the story, whereas nonfiction authors are judged by the quality of their platform, their presence in the subject area, in the specific market.
Great. Well, I still haven't seen any questions from participants on the chat panel, so perhaps... Oh.
I found a tab that says questions, and there seem to be 2 or 3 locked in there, and I think I've teased one out. And there's another one that says, how do I grab publishers' and agents' attention to respond to me? And I think that that's the most frustrating thing, is that at one time the publishing industry helped authors. Today they don't have time. When I began in the publishing world, I was responsible for 1 book a month, 12 a year. Toward the end of my work in the publishing editors area, I was doing 1 a week. I was in the office. I didn't have time to take any proposal that wasn't ready to be photocopied and taken to an acquisitions committee. And I know every editor in the business is in that same kind of situation. So you have to make your proposals photocopy ready to go.
It helps to print out the proposal and get some feedback on it. Perhaps ask some of your family members, your friends for their input. But you definitely want to print it out, review it a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my situation, I've caught some errors on a second or a third glance, and I'm sure this is your case as well, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Something might fall through the cracks on the first review, and then you look at it again, and you notice some things that could be tweaked.
Mm-hmm. And where volunteers can be most helpful is when they raise questions. I don't understand this. This doesn't seem to flow from that. Even if their solutions don't fit, the fact that they're pointing to something, you need to go back and take a look at that. Do you need to expand the argument so that everyone is brought along step by step, or use a different image or illustration, or bring some information that is now later up closer to the front so that people have that in mind as they're reading the argument or the piece.
Great. Well, Tim, I think I don't have a way of seeing the other questions, or maybe I don't have that panel available.
Maybe not. But I think...
are there any other...
Wait. Oh. How long should a proposal be is here. Oh. Kathy, a proposal should be only as long as it needs to be. Yeah, and you should put all the punch into it that you can. Most editors or agents sit down with a proposal and they start reading. And as soon as they get disinterested, they stop. And so you want to make it as powerful and interesting from the front on as you can. And one of the ways to make it powerful is to condense it. Keep it tight rather than... so maybe the first draft has 20 pages plus your sample chapter. The second draft has 10. And so that each word is popping, each sentence is active. You also might use some free resources like autocrit.com, which analyze how many words are used and as compared to the total passage. And it will point out if you have too many haves or was or said or whatever it is, and encourage you to reduce the number of those. It'll make your writing much more active. And it also picks up on the very words that agents and publishers, editors are looking for. If a sample is too passive or not active enough, they'll want to lay it aside.
Great. Well, so the URL for Aaron's company is at the bottom of the screen, flynnmedia.com. That's FLYNN media.com. And the URL for Timothy's company is myliterarycoach.com, all one word. And if either of you want to share an email address where people could get in touch with you if they have more questions.
Sure, Sarah. My email is erin@flynnmedia.com.
Great.
Mm-hmm. And mine is tstavetag at myliterarycoach.
Info at myliterarycoach?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been such a helpful presentation, and I really appreciate both of your time and energy that you put into this.
Thank you all for attending.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Erin.